I think the layer 2 versus layer 1 debate is a relatively smaller issue when it comes to price impact of Ethereum versus a much larger question. So I think the larger issue is that the ETH to Bitcoin ratio. So ETH have been underperforming compared to Bitcoin. And I think part of the reason why Bitcoin is overperforming is that the roadmap and the deflationary nature, and there is a very clear cyclical nature of Bitcoin that's repeated every 4 years, centered around halving, is something that institutions and most kind of Bitcoin users are used to. So that swing is playing out, with the, unless the US declares, Bitcoin becomes national reserve or anything that's like policy driven. So barring any kind of, US related major policy change, the Bitcoin cycle has become super predictable and super well understood by institutional players. And also it is Bitcoin is deflationary, and all of these issues means it's been, and then also in terms of Bitcoin's positioning as digital gold is becoming clearer and clearer. And so that has been resulting in kind of acceptance by institutions around the world. I think with the issue with Ethereum, I think it's gone through various positioning as ultrasound money, as the decentralized computer, as a means of I've heard different versions of Ethereum positioning from different members of the community, or Ethereum as sound money because it's a means of exchange as well as a store of value. There have been different versions of the Ethereum pitch, and overall, it's landed in a place where it's not as succinct and not as well understood by institutions, which have been the biggest kind of flow of capital flow into crypto this cycle. I think the L2 impact of Ethereum pales in comparison to this bigger trend. And I think in terms of whether L2 is a parasitic, I think L2 is a super smart way for Ethereum to gain more mindshare and decentralize some aspect of ecosystem building and promoting the Solidity language and engaging with developers everywhere. The call to action for L2s to become a de facto kind of a BD or ecosystem building arm for Ethereum is super strong. And but regardless of whether this experiment is going to play out, I don't think there's been a lack of activity on Ethereum L1 at all. But whether that amount of activity on Ethereum L1 is going to result in ETH being inflationary and deflationary, I think that has a much bigger impact on the price direction and certainty for institutional adoption. But that's just my 2 cents. And I think the fact that we've seen multiple versions of Microstrategy for Bitcoin, in Japan, in US, and in Canada, but we haven't yet seen a proper one for ETH yet, is related to the fact that ETH is still potentially inflationary, and that's kind of has an impact on whether these vehicles can kind of catch become the TradFi leverage multiplier for the asset. So I think there's a few of these like institutional components that impacts the BTC to ETH ratio, and L2s as a whole, I think, is net value accretive, and you can see other ecosystems such as Solana trying to replicate this with what they call network extensions, which is essentially kind of a cash up version of Ethereum there too. So think in terms of the amount of talent and visibility L2s have brought to Ethereum, I think it's still I think it's a net positive. On whether L2 centric roadmap as a whole plays out, I think a lot of it depends on in the next 2 or 3 years whether there could be a more interoperable cross-chain experience, and whether L2s can become kind of sufficiently decentralized, and I think there is a version where this grows in a very healthy way as Bitcoin becomes more and more kind of US centric and US institution centric in terms of ownership, and Ethereum and plus the L2s can offer an alternative to that future.